I don't think I'm revealing anything too crazy when I say that the New York Jets, historically speaking, have not had too many good quarterbacks. If these lowlights don't give it away, nothing will. Despite being around for over 60 years and going on 7 decades at this point, there's a reason that only once in the history of the franchise has a quarterback thrown for over 4,000 yards in a season, and that it hasn't happened since man walked on the moon. Yes, there have been some good quarterbacks to play for the team, like Hall of Fame quarterback Joe Namath, Vinny Testaverde, and 2-time Pro Bowler Ken O'Brien. But for every good quarterback to walk through the Big Apple and play for the team in green and white, another 10 flamed out in spectacular fashion. From recent flameouts like Zach Wilson and Christian Hackenberg, to older guys like Browning Nagel, who you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner, J.J. Jones, Neil O'Donnell, and Kyle Mackey, who you can also learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. To say that the Jets have had little success at quarterback would be like saying that humans need oxygen to breathe. That's how obvious that statement is. However, of the many, and I truly mean the many quarterbacks to start a game for the Jets, of all the bad ones that they've had, none might be as bad as the man that this man, head coach Weeb Ewbank, had to deal with. In 1965, life would change forever for Ewbank and the Jets after they convinced Joe Namath to spurn the St. Louis Cardinals of the NFL and join the rival upstart American Football League. But in 1963, Ewbank, in his first season with the team, was dealing with a quarterback so bad that Ewbank literally admitted before the game that this was going to be bad, that he wished he had someone else at quarterback, and that this quarterback was not good at all. Imagine going into a game with a starting quarterback and telling the press, guys, don't expect much. This guy kind of sucks. Seems insane for a coach to do that. You wouldn't expect Kevin Stefanski to go into Cleveland's season opener and say, I have no hopes for this game. Kenny Pickett isn't a good quarterback, and he has many flaws to his game. I would much rather have Lamar Jackson under center. Yet, that's exactly what Weeb Ewbank did in 1963 prior to a game against the Buffalo Bills, when he had to start a man by the name of Galen Hall under center. And let's just say the results were a very predictable disaster for New York, because Ewbank's confidence, or should I say, lack of confidence in his team, was proven to be 100% right on this day, much to his dismay. Because this is the story behind what might just be, considering the circumstances, the worst quarterback in the more than 6-decade-long history of the New York Jets franchise. And the man that this man right here, Weeb Ewbank, really did not want to start. Make sure you hit that like button down below, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel, because we post every single day on here about the weird and the wacky history of the NFL with stories like this one that you may not have heard of before. So if you like that sort of stuff and want to learn more about NFL history, then this is definitely the place for you. Thanks in advance for liking and subscribing, and for helping us grow this community even more. And with that in mind, let's talk about the jet that was the biggest crash of all the crash landings that they've had under center. Before I talk about the quarterback in question and just how bad he was, we need some context to understand the predicament that this man right here, head coach Weeb Ewbank, was in heading into the penultimate game of the 1963 season, as in the team's final season at the Polo Grounds before moving over to Queens and Shea Stadium in 1964. With 2 weeks to go, to say that the 1963 season was not going well for the Jets would be putting it lightly. The team was 5-6-1, and after starting the season 3-1, they had won just 2 of their ensuing 7 games to drop to below 500. The AFL East was a really bad division. At a time where only the division winner made it to the championship game, only one team was even above 500 with 2 games to go. So this really should have been New York's division for the taking. Instead, it was anything but that. The Jets have the worst offense in the AFL with 2 games to go, having scored just 239 points, or under 20 points per game, and they had been held to 17 points or less in 4 of their last 5 games, including a 45-14 drubbing the week before against the Buffalo Bills. And a big reason why the offense stunk under this man right here in Weeb Ewbank was very bad quarterback play. Dare I say it, it was anemic quarterback play. The Jets had Dick Wood as their quarterback for most of the 1963 season. And yes, that was his real name. One of the all-time greatest names for any player in the history of professional sports. Anyways, Dick Wood was not exactly playing well for the Jets. And while he did have his moments of brilliance at times, he had a lot of brain farts. He had a loss in the season opener against the Boston Patriots, where he threw 4 interceptions. A game against the Oakland Raiders, where the team scored just 10 points, thanks to Wood throwing 5 picks. And a loss to the Houston Oilers, where he once again threw 5 interceptions. On the season, Wood completed just 45% of his passes, which was well below league-wide average and ranked second from the bottom amongst all quarterbacks to throw at least 200 passes. But as bad as Wood was, it was about to get a whole lot worse. Because during that 45-14 loss to the Bills, after Wood injured some ligaments in his left leg and was placed on injured reserve, meaning that he'd be out for the final 2 games of the season, Weeb Ewbank, as in the man that you've been watching this entire time, had to go to the backup quarterback. And the guy behind Wood on the depth chart? Well, that was this man right here, a man by the name of Galen Hall. Unfortunately, that's not as good of a name as Dick Wood. You're seeing highlights of Hall during his time with Penn State when he was in college, and not highlights of him in professional football. As you might have been able to guess, there's a pretty good reason for that. After being released after just 1 season with Washington in 1962, he went from the NFL to the AFL, latching on with the Jets and playing sparingly as the backup to Wood, not doing much of anything over his previous appearances. He failed to complete more than 50% of his passes in any of his 4 outings before the moment in question. And in one particular outing, a 53-7 loss to the San Diego Chargers, where he appeared in mop-up duty, he went just 4 for 11, completing 36% of his passes with no touchdowns, 1 interception, and a passer rating of 12.3, which is worse than if he did nothing but spike the ball into the ground on every single play. Hall was not the most technically sound quarterback, if you will. He was a runner, as we saw at Penn State, and he was a deep ball chucker. If there was a chance to go deep down the field, even if it wasn't there, you bet your bottom dollar he was going to try it and see what the heck happened. And now, this man right here, Galen Hall, was going to be getting his first ever professional start, as on December 14th, 1963, in the final game at the Polo Grounds and the penultimate game of the season, with the Jets season pretty much over barring a miracle, he was going to be going up against the Buffalo Bills. Yes, that's the same team that the Jets played the previous week, where Hall came in after Wood got hurt and went just 15 for 37 while throwing 2 interceptions. Now obviously, Galen Hall was a downgrade from Dick Wood. For most teams, the backup quarterback is going to be a downgrade from the starting quarterback. But you would think that head coach Weeb Ewbank would talk his guy up beforehand. You would think that Ewbank would say something before the game praising his backup quarterback. If Ewbank said something like, "He's learned a lot over the last year, and I'm excited to see what he can do in an expanded role," no issues with me. If Ewbank said something like, "It's tough for a backup quarterback to come in off the bench in a game plan that's not for him and throw to receivers who ran with the ones when you've been practicing with the twos all week, so now that he's the starter, he's got more chemistry and he's more comfortable with what we're going to try to do," again, no issues with me. If he said, "I know he's excited about this moment and we'll see what happens," once again, no issues with me. You get the idea. Just say anything, literally anything besides what you're about to say, and this is a non-story that is not being brought up and being remembered more than 6 decades later. However, when it came to Weeb Ewbank praising the man he'd been watching in Galen Hall, that did not happen. Because when it came time to talk about Hall, Ewbank became the background fish from SpongeBob SquarePants, and in no uncertain terms, said to the press,
"Oh, brother, this guy stinks!"
Yeah, let's talk about what this man right here, Weeb Ewbank, said to people. Because Ewbank not only had no confidence in Hall to be any good for the team under center, but he made it very clear, abundantly clear, that this was not going to go well, that he had flaws in his game, and that he wished that he had a better quarterback on his team. As Ewbank said on Hall, he's too anxious. He wants to go for that long one right away. I've been trying to make him more like Y.A. Tittle. Now there's a great one. Okay, there's a few things to break down with this statement. Number one, way to talk smack about your own quarterback. Way to bring his confidence down. Good job just publicly calling him out and talking about how bad he is and how you wish that he played like a different quarterback. Number two, comparing Galen Hall to Y.A. Tittle is insane. Not just because Tittle is much older, led the NFL in touchdown passes in 1963, and was on his way to making the Hall of Fame, but because he was literally on the New York Giants, as in the team in the same city in the rival league. You're saying Galen Hall, not a good quarterback. Y.A. Tittle, now that's a great quarterback. Basically encouraging people, if they wanted to watch good quarterback play, at a time when gate receipts were a huge part of how teams made money, to go watch the team across the street in the rival league. Want to see a quarterback that knows what he's doing? Go to our competitor. It's like a Home Depot employee directing customers to go to Lowe's. It's like if New York Mets manager Carlos Mendoza said, Juan Soto isn't a great fielder and a great hitter. I wish he was more like Aaron Judge. Now that's a great player that I love watching. You see the problem with that, right? That's a pretty big freaking problem. So going into the Bills game, Ewbank had nothing nice to say about his quarterback. He had great things to say about the quarterback on the rival team from a different league, but no great things to say about his own quarterback, saying that he's anxious, he's not good, he doesn't have a good play style, and tries to go deep too often. There wasn't even a but attached to it. Sometimes you say a negative statement and then turn it around, like how you're supposed to answer the dreaded interview question about what your biggest weakness is. You say that your weakness is XYZ, but you've been doing ABC to improve at it. Ewbank didn't even do that. There was no praise. It was just an entire press conference before the Bills game of him going about his quarterback situation. Crap, we're screwed. It's not even the last time in Jets history that this happened. Head coach Ken Shipp infamously tried this strategy in 1975 prior to a game against the St. Louis Cardinals, where he bashed his team for no reason and told them how much they sucked. And you can learn more about that disaster by clicking the card in the upper right corner. But seeing how little faith this man right here had in his new quarterback, Galen Hall, for that game against the Bills, you're not going to be surprised with how the game played out. Because when this game right here took place, and the final Jet game ever at the Polo Grounds unfolded, you'll notice a disturbing lack of highlights from one particular player. Galen Hall was really bad. The Bills won the game 19-10, beating the Jets twice in back-to-back weeks. And while there were a few reasons for that, like Cookie Gilchrist running wild for 114 yards on the Jets, and the Bills doubling the Jets in first downs, one of the big ones was the fact that Galen Hall was not good. Like I said before, when showing highlights of Hall and footage of him, there's a reason that the footage came from his time in college and not his time in the pros. Hall finished the game going 11 for 33, completing 33% of his passes. 2 out of 3 ain't bad when it comes to Meatloaf, but when it comes to the number of passes that are falling incomplete, that's really bad. Besides completing 33% of his passes, he threw 3 interceptions and finished with a passer rating of 36.8, which is worse if it did nothing but spike the ball into the ground on every single play. Yes, I said that twice in one video. Deal with it. This game clinched a losing record for the Jets, eliminated them officially from the playoff race, and was a sign of things to come for Hall, as Hall, starting the final game of the season 1 week later for the injured Dick Wood against the Kansas City Chiefs, was even worse in that one, going 9 for 24 with 96 yards, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a passer rating of 10.4 in an embarrassing 48-0 loss. On the season, Galen Hall threw 3 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. That's a 1-to-3 touchdowns interception ratio if you're doing the math at home. He never played again after the 1963 season, as he went into the coaching ranks, where his time with the Florida Gators 2 decades later as the man in charge would be interesting. I'll put it that way. But to give you an idea of how bad Hall was, not just during this game right here, hence why there's no highlights of him, but during the entire season, there were 17 players in the AFL to throw at least 20 passes during that 1963 season. They're all charted right here. Galen Hall ranked dead last in passer rating, and by a fairly comfortable margin, I might add, with a 32.1 rating on the entire season. And then, if we go to a different chart and rank those 17 guys from a completion percentage standpoint, sure enough, Galen Hall ranked dead last at just 38.1%. Weeb Ewbank knew what he was talking about with his quarterback being bad and with him having no hope and wanting Y.A. Tittle under center. Galen Hall playing quarterback was the worst thing to happen to anything named Galen Hall in 1963. This man right here, head coach Weeb Ewbank, is one of the greatest of all time. He is in the Hall of Fame, and he is a Super Bowl champion for a reason. But even if he knew what he was talking about when it came to quarterbacks, it's probably not the best idea to say it out loud before the game and before your guy's about to make his first ever start that he's not that good and that you really want someone else. In 1999, Dick Vermeil said when Trent Green went down, "We will rally around Kurt Warner and we will play good football." Weeb Ewbank said when his man went down, "He's bad and I'd rather have Y.A. Tittle." Very different approach. There have been many bad quarterbacks in Jet history, but at least to my knowledge, only one was so bad that he was panned like this by his own coach before the game to the point where his coach was conceding defeat in what was technically the middle of a playoff race. Because in 1963, Galen Hall might have earned the title of the worst quarterback in the history of the Jets when he made every Jet fan, man or woman, long for Dick Wood. Check out our live streaming schedule for the next few days. We're live every single day on this channel, whether we're covering a sporting event or playing GeoGuessr or just taking your requests. So make sure you like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single time that we go live and so that you can join this community. Also, thanks to all our members and our Patreon supporters who get exclusive perks like their name at the end of each video, members-only Q&A streams, and cool emojis to use on videos and during streams. See how you can join this community and become a member or a Patreon member by clicking the link in the description below.